Ah, memes. The one thing on the internet no one seems to tire of, yet not everyone can fully understand. Be it some college student posting about how frustrating his or her semester is with a heavily stylized face of anger, a pet owner commenting on how their pet behaves with a hint of sarcasm and pure insanity, or an amateur video editor editing a Lego commercial for he and his audience's amusement, memes have transcended cultural boundaries and become something of a language themselves. But the honest question so many on the internet not well versed in memes have asked is, what are memes exactly? And where did they come from?
How do I put this? When a mommy
Meme.
and a daddy
Meme.
love each other very much, they decide. No!
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Let's try this again. So, let's start with the basics. In 1976, British evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins coined the term meme in his book, The Selfish Gene. He defined it as being similar to the scientific idea of a gene, replicating, making copies of itself, and spreading and transmitting cultural ideas among individuals. Sound familiar? So you might be thinking to yourself, so memes originated a few decades before the internet? Well, you might be surprised to know that the foundations of memes stretch back even further than that. To really get to the heart of meme evolution, we have to go back a few thousand years before then. Around 3300 BC. Back in the time of
Ancient Egypt.
You remember hearing about hieroglyphics? Those symbols and pictures carved into tombs and pillars in ancient Egypt? Well, it wouldn't actually be too far off to consider them as the precursors to emojis and memes. They certainly fit the criteria that Dawkins established in the 1970s, even if that criteria wasn't around then. On Medium.com, author Una Tietz said that ancient Egyptians used hieroglyphics as a way to capture ideas, as well as to communicate with other members of their society. It is worth noting, however, that the use of hieroglyphics was typically restricted to members of the ruling class and the elite, and that unlike emojis, hieroglyphics were less pictorial representations of objects and more actual language used in tandem with written text. So, it could perhaps be said that hieroglyphs are more elegant forms of emojis and memes. I wonder if King Tut made memes. As if that wasn't enough, hieroglyphics were used by the ruling and upper classes exclusively for the purposes of, as Tietz puts it, religious texts, royal documents, and the recording of important events. Hunting, spells, historical documentation, and such. So, memes are related to religion then. How the hell does that work? After all, in English, the term hieroglyphics is translated as the word of the gods. Eventually, the written work took preference over hieroglyphics, and the conceptual idea and history of the meme became more abstract. You know, it's probably worth mentioning by now that trends and catchphrases are essentially memes too. Let's jump ahead a few thousand years again, but just a little bit before Dawkins coined the term meme. Across the world, strange fads and clothing choices were often a way of life. You could honestly say that they were memes without the present-day boundaries of the internet, spreading and being passed around like modern-day internet memes. It turns out that in some cases, this ended up being a particularly bad idea, and in others, it was just plain amusing. During the Victorian era, everyone thought it would be a bright idea to use radium and go gaga for a green pigment that turned out to be made of arsenic, with predictably disastrous results. At the turn of the century, people crashed trains into each other for their amusement. If I wanted to see glorified crashes today, I might as well go to Talladega. In the Roaring '20s, it was about flagpole sitting, the first of many endurance tests and one of the precursors to stranger social media challenges today. It's exactly what it sounds like. The 30s and 40s brought us such gems as the frisbee and the slinky, flying and snaking their way down the stairs and across the lawns of homes everywhere. The 50s was the hula hoop's time to swing and shine. Would it be safe to consider the Beatles a meme? Living memes like that's ever going to take off. In the 60s and 70s, hippies were spray painting on walls and wearing buttons that said, "Frodo lives," as a way to stick it to the man, relating to the hardships that the Lord of the Rings lead character Frodo Baggins faced, for some reason. And speaking of hippies, everything about that movement was grade A meme material, especially Woodstock. Oh, but we can't forget about the wild years of the Cabbage Patch Kids, can we? Tickle Me Elmo probably fits into that category too.
Good news, Elmo is showing signs of life. Tense moments as the wind picks up again. Oh God, hang on, Elmo. But the wind dies down and Elmo is finally safe.
Hey, they got Elmo.
Shaking violently, apparently from the cold, Elmo needs immediate medical attention. His doctor has prescribed bed rest and plenty of love.
What I'm trying to say here is that catchphrases, trends, and fads spread around the world much like memes do today. A sort of analog meme technology, if you will. Steadily but surely, catchphrases, trends, and fads spilled over into the digital realm. And with the invention of the internet, things were about to get out of control. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee, a British engineer and computer programmer at CERN, also known as the European Organization for Nuclear Research, developed and created the World Wide Web, and the first web pages to go with it. It was a simple enough idea. Pages that might normally take several flips through an encyclopedia to reach could now be accessed in a few clicks. Of course, it's not like all the people who were caught up in the trends and fads of the past few decades and college students who had way too much time on their hands would gain access to or understand this new technology. Oh wait, they did. Internet memes started out innocently enough, being designed to fill some niches. Since the earliest web pages were mainly text-based, you really had to have done your research or been in the know about hacker and gamer slang to even get what people were talking about.
Oh, it's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
It's like how I mentioned Egyptian hieroglyphs being more for the ruling class earlier. Hieroglyphs made by people with lots of Mountain Dew and Cheeto dust. Do these look familiar to any of you? Then, someone got the bright idea to put images in animated clips, or GIFs, to go with the already rich amount of text slang on the web. And yes, it's pronounced GIF. Don't correct me on that. Anyways, I have to say, I recognize quite a few of these myself. Text merged with images. Images turned to GIFs. GIFs became viral videos, which led to YouTube. Today, we have so many different kinds of memes based on so many different concepts and ideas, no matter how obscure they are, that it makes your head spin. Now, if you're going to post a meme on the internet, it's likely for one of these 4 reasons. Number 1, to make someone laugh. Number 2, to intentionally offend someone. Number 3, to comment on current events. Psst, this year alone, there are several that we've already commented on. And number 4, some or all of the above. With information moving so fast around the internet, and the world for that matter, sometimes a simple blog post or a single emoji just doesn't cut it. Memes have become our second language, allowing us to talk about films, sports, politics, television, and music in a language that often transcends linguistic and cultural boundaries. While this is somewhat of a generalization of the millions of memes on the internet, with so many of them, who's gonna have time to get through them all? I mean, I'm not James Cameron, but you know one kind of meme that I do understand to dive into, even for a bit? We all know what happened in the 2016 election. And let's face it, the analysis of how memes influence the election, be it from foreign infiltrators or domestic citizens, has been beaten into the ground. But there's an election in a few months, so I'm gonna do it. Political campaigns are driven by nature to thrive on sound bites and slogans, 2 things that meme history has already tread ground on. But the internet is a pretty big playground, and social media services like Twitter and Facebook make it pretty easy for any sort of information to spread on politics, be it good or bad. But what if that info isn't true in the first place? In fact, what if it's maliciously wrong? Joan Donovan of MIT's Technology Review touched upon this fact in October 2019 by stating that, importantly, as memes are shared, they shed the context of their creation, along with their authorship. Unmoored from the trappings of an author's reputation or intention, they become the collective property of the culture. As such, memes take on a life of their own, and no one has to answer for transgressive or hateful ideas. And that can be particularly harmful when you consider that the 2 lead presidential candidates in 2016 were essentially walking memes with supporters rabid to attack the opposing candidate by any means necessary. I could be totally against a Donald Trump policy on, say, the environment, but take a photo of me and add some text or an out-of-context quote that makes it look like I do, and BAM! It'll spread so fast that no one will ever know it wasn't my opinion in the first place, or that I even consented to my likeness being used for that purpose. No matter how true or false something may be related to a candidate, if it gets the clicks and supporters don't check their sources, thousands of votes may swing in one direction or another, enough to elect a guinea pig for president. Oh, is it the hair? I do apologize. Memes can be hilarious. But if history has proved one thing, they can also be dangerous in the wrong hands. That was too dark. It's like I compared memes to missiles or something. Shall we lighten the mood around here? It is ultimately quite fascinating how we got to where memes are, and just how culturally relevant they are today. The Egyptians started with pictorial communication through hieroglyphs, and in the end, we've come full circle, communicating with images in our own weird ways, and going so far as to share their admiration for cats, even if it is in a more humorous context. We've taken some of the most absurd fads, trends, and catchphrases of the past few decades and given them a digital spin, maybe even rubbing back on the physical items, such as t-shirts and toys. Memes have helped politicians get elected and allowed those in power to communicate with a younger demographic that they never even imagined having to bridge a gap with. After all, someone can send an older meme, but it can still check out. With the internet evolving exponentially with each passing year, who knows what memes are going to look like in 5, 10, 25, or even 50 years? I'm pretty sure that when Richard Dawkins came up with the term meme back in 1976, that he never imagined just how influential and relevant the term and the cultural concept it started would be. I wonder what he would have thought if you told him about where memes are today back then. He probably would have looked at you with the most confused and stunned expression imaginable. I hope I have given you a satisfactory introduction to memes and meme history that makes you want to seek out more detailed and expansive sources on memes. Memes. The one thing on the internet no one seems to tire of, and that everyone has only scratched the surface of just how vast and insane they really are.